Anime that are emotionally involving are my absolute favorites. It takes talented writing to be able to move people on the emotional level, and when anime are able to do that to me, I like them a lot more for it. I did my best not to make them all the finales of shows or whatever, but given the nature of what I'm looking for, that's kinda hard to do, unless I just lie. Given that, there will be lots of spoilers in this list. I'll put a list of anime that I'll be discussing, and the timestamps for their beginning and end in the description of the YouTube video, though I hope that you don't mind too much, and I hope that my talking about them will encourage you to check them out. Also, they won't just be sad scenes, though given the nature of this theme, it's inevitable that there will be a lot of them. Now, keep in mind that these are just my personal preferences. These are the scenes that hit me the hardest. These are scenes so powerful that just recalling them is enough to make me misty-eyed. If you had ones that hit you harder, good for you, but don't get upset if you don't like my ordering, or if I excluded anything you think should have been there. It's my feels, after all. It was hard for me to shave this list down as much as I did. There are a lot of scenes that I couldn't include because the list would have been too fucking long. Just keep in mind how much had to be left out. Anyways, here are my top 12 heart-wrenching scenes in anime. Number 12. Sayaka becoming a witch in Mahou Shoujo Madoka Magica. This scene is incredible due to how well built up it was. It's incredible because of how well depicted her descent into darkness and despair really is. I'm going to assert that Sayaka is the best written character in Madoka Magica, regardless of my, or your, preferences for which character you like more. The scene that immediately precedes it served as a perfect stepping stone for it, as she's forced to question whether or not this world, which she has sacrificed her chance at happiness with the boy she had a crush on, and her humanity, viewing herself as a monster, is really worth all the suffering she's been going through to save. And in this scene, her despair finally takes over, and her soul gem becomes a grief seed, and, well, you know the rest. Sayaka is tragic, believable, and relatable, and that's what makes her amazing as a character. Number 11. Rin crying in Usagi Drop Episode 1. You know the writing is good when a show can make you misty-eyed halfway through the very first episode. Usagi Drop is one of only a few anime to make me do so. That's how well written and directed it is. One simple and subtle but extremely touching and effective moment. It gets you invested in the characters in a subtle way by how it presents them and their situations realistically. It doesn't even have to try. It just depicts how hard it is for a little kid to wrap their mind around the concept of death perfectly. Rin doesn't really understand death, but she understands the fact that she'll never see her dad again, the fact that he'll never wake up. There's not really much more to say here than that. Number 10. Lelouch's death at the end of Code Geass R2. This scene cements the ending of Code Geass as one of the best endings in anime history. It was an epic conclusion for an epic story, and this story is an epic, mind you. Not the typical internet bastardization of the term, like an epic tale following our hero. The story was just that grand, and the flashback scenes help by showing some of the highlights through our journey. I can't properly put into words how awesome this scene is, because of how it's a culmination of the story and a realization of Lelouch's vision. Lelouch is a realistically flawed but compelling and, more importantly, likable character, which makes this scene's tragedy so great. But as if his strength as a character weren't enough, Nanali's reaction to this delivered the second punch in the 1-2 combo. The tragedy is compounded by the fact that all Nanali really wanted was to live happily with her brother. He wanted to make a new world for his sister to live in, but all she wanted was him. You even see her realize what his goal ultimately was. He turned himself into an object of hatred to change the world. And you ass fucks who actually think he was the cart driver at the ending scene with C2 need to shut the fuck up. That's just your wishful thinking, and that wishful thinking ultimately shits on Lelouch's legacy as a character, not to mention the fact that it has absolutely no evidence to back it up. So shut the fuck up. Soapbox rant over. Number 9. Yin crying in Darker Than Black, Episode 14. This episode is one of the many in the show that illustrate how fucking amazing emotionless girls can be when they're written well. And Yin is a perfect example of an emotionless girl done well. When you spent all this time with her leading up to this point, and after learning about her backstory, seeing her shed tears is an incredibly powerful thing. It says so much without saying anything at all, and I don't really have anything else to say about it than that. Number 8. Hiroki and Sayuri's reunion at the end of The Place Promised in Our Early Days. To give you some context for this scene, Sayuri's been unconscious for 3 years, as her consciousness has been trapped in a parallel world linked to this tall, mysterious tower. At the film's climax, Hiroki pilots the plane he and his friend made to the tower, with the unconscious Sayuri on board. This finally wakes her and reunites the couple at last. I'm really not doing the scene any justice at all, and you really have to watch it to get the full grasp of how powerful it is. I basically have to show you the whole scene uncut and unedited, and because of that, I suggest you watch it for yourself. But the scene is actually bittersweet, in that she had forgotten of the thoughts she had while she was trapped in her coma. She had come to the realization that she loved Hiroki, but when she awoke, all she knew was that she had lost something, and that was why she cried.
Please, I have to tell him how much I've loved him all this time. If I could tell him that much, I don't need anything else. Please, even for just a second.
Basically, the scene was powerful because of the psychology and inner thoughts with Sayuri you've been glimpsing. Jessica Boone's voice acting during the scene is the best in the entire movie, and you can really get a feel for Sayuri's emotions because of it. The music is also damn astounding. However, the scene still ends on an optimistic, forward-looking note, and leads into the beautiful ending theme, Your Voice. God damn it. I'm tearing up just thinking about it. That means it's time to move on. Number 7. Kannade's Passing in Angel Beats Episode 13. In a show with numerous candidates for this countdown, it was fucking hard to just pick one particular gem. Hell, there's so much emotion in the OP and ED themselves that they could have probably made this list if they were actual scenes. But in the end, Kannade's Passing was the one that hit me the hardest. The scene obviously wasn't perfect, because Otonashi's confession wasn't developed enough. If some things about it were fixed, it would have been much higher on the list. However, there was still definitely a bond between them, and that's what made this scene so damn powerful. The possibility of never seeing someone you care a lot about again is pretty devastating. I can definitely understand why Otonashi might rather just stay here in this timeless purgatory forever. Ichiban no Takaramo no, which means my most precious treasure, is the most touching song in the entire show, and god damn it does it really bring this scene together. Thank God for the scene after the credits, or else I would have gone insane. Number 6. Setsuko's death in Grave of the Fireflies. The scene's impact didn't really reach me until the scenes following the moment. That is, her funeral pyre and the scene where Seita and Setsuko are ghosts looking back on their lives. The time release kind of helped my reaction. Since it didn't hit me all at once, rather than inducing a gushing waterfall, it just kind of drained me slowly. Don't get me wrong, it still brought tears to my eyes. Most other death scenes just push it at that moment with the dramatic music. After the movie, I just felt so sapped of any will to live. I watched with my friend, and she just kept asking me if I was okay. I wasn't. I just wanted to give up. I just wanted to crawl in a corner and die. Poor Setsuko. Number 5. Tomoya and Ushio's reconciliation during Clannad After Story Episode 18. God damn, this scene made After Story, as Tomoya finally getting over the depression his wife's death caused, and making up for being an uncaring father for the first 5 years of Ushio's life. The parallels with the flashbacks to Tomoya's relationship with his father really cemented this scene. And then, the train scene immediately afterwards just kinda kicked me while my defenses were down. Well, not kicked. That makes it sound malevolent. I'm not entirely sure how to word it. The scene is just adorable and heartwarming, okay? Anyway, best part of the nearly 50 episode series, hands down. Number 4. Kobato's disappearance in Kobato episode 23. So Kobato's time limit for filling her jar has finally run out. You know what's coming, you know it's inevitable, and that building anticipation comes to a head in this scene. Fujimoto running around desperately trying to find her after realizing how mean he had been to her, and the fact that she was about to leave, helps lead into the moment. He finally finds her in the park where she first descended just in time for the cute but surprisingly threatening Usagi to come take her away. The song playing during this scene, whose title means sometime, somewhere, brings a lot of power to this scene, and is definitely the best song in the entire OST. The scene is powerful all because of the 3 main characters involved. Kobato is one of the most lovable characters to ever grace the world of fiction, and you just wanted to see her succeed in her goal. Fujimoto is the jerk who you know has a heart of gold underneath his icy exterior, and now that that icy exterior finally shattered, you want him to reconcile with Kobato and see them get together in the end. And finally, you have Yogi, who vehemently defends Kobato for the 2nd time in the show, showing how, despite his constant scolding of her, he really does care about her. It's a good thing the show ultimately ended happily though, or this scene would have been much sadder than it already was. Number 3. Misuzu's death in Air Episode 12. The last 2 episodes of this show are easily the best in the entire series, thanks entirely to Misuzu and Haruko's relationship. Kind of like the arc between Tomoya and Ushio in Clannad. Haruko has been trying to make amends for the negligent parenting style she'd adopted. She does her best to make up for lost time as Misuzu's time is about to run out. It's really hard to watch how difficult the whole ordeal is for her to deal with. Their relationship is what makes the scene so damn powerful, since you can see the regret Haruko feels and how much she loves her niece like her own daughter. Even if you're you're enough of a soulless husk not to care at all about Misuzu herself, you should at least be able to sympathize with Haruko. This is also the role that's probably Lucy Christian's best performance, and it shows in this scene. It really feels like she is her character, and I don't think this scene would have had as much impact if anybody but her were voicing Haruko, even with Leah singing Aozora in the background. Number 2, Ai's death in Hellgirl Futakomori. Oh man. Ai Enma. I can't say enough about this character, but this isn't the time for that. There's a lot more to this scene besides being the death of the best character I've ever seen. We need some more context here. So there's this kid named Takuma who, long story short, is being blamed by the townspeople for things he didn't do and is being called the devil's child. He's just a convenient scapegoat for the disappearances of people in the town who are really just being ferried to hell by Ai and her helpers, because of the growing air of paranoia in the town. Eventually, someone has Takuma himself sent to hell. However, Ai knows that the kid has done nothing wrong. She'd been observing his situation with interest. When she sees him crying on the boat on the way to hell, she keeps thinking about how closely his situation parallels what happened to her. She was sacrificed unjustly by the people in her village. Her empathy is so powerful that she disobeys the cardinal rule and turns the boat around. However, as punishment, she loses all of her powers and immortality. An angry mob sees that Takuma is back, even though they'd watched as the guy who sent him to hell pulled the string. They become frenzied and are about to beat him to death, but then Ai shows up to save him. They turn their wrath upon her, and she martyrs herself in his stead. She saves him so he can live on. While she's being beaten to death, she's smiling, showing exactly how she feels about her choice. This selfless act of redemption is just one of the things that make her the best character I've ever seen, and God is it hard to watch her being beaten to death. Oh, Ai. And number 1. Mirai's reunion with her mother in Tokyo Magnitude 8.0. This scene. Oh my god, this scene. Of all the scenes I've listed so far, none have incurred waterworks as hard as this. All those other scenes sure got me misty-eyed and brought tears to my eyes, but none of them caused this many tears. It was legitimate bawling. So anyway, the scene. The magnificent realism in the characters is one of the shining aspects of this show. Mirai is an extremely realistic teenage girl who has problems with her relationships with her parents, which I'm sure everyone can relate to. But after an earthquake, her journey to get home led to a good amount of character development for her. But also, she lost her brother Yuki, and was just finally coming to terms with the fact that he was really gone. These two emotional points, Mirai finally seeing her mother again, and Mirai accepting the fact that her brother was dead, were a two-pronged assault on my heartstrings that I could not withstand. Once again, the music definitely contributed greatly to the scene. It's easily the most memorable track in the entire OST, and God is it amazing. It's called For Yuki, by the way. Kinda gives more meaning to it. Well, anyway, I hope you still have tissues left after all this. God, I know I don't. You really need to see the anime these scenes are from to get the full impact, and I really recommend you see all of them. They're all great. I don't have a lot more to say at this point, except, I guess, that I hope to get a lot more heart-rending scenes in future anime to come. Emotionally powerful scenes are the highlight of my anime viewing experience. So please stop the generic otaku pandering, Japan. Please! I want my feels.